Today we're going to begin factoring, and we're going to start with the one you need to always check first, which is greatest common factor. A lot of times the greatest common factor will make it easier to factor again if necessary. Makes the number smaller, makes the power smaller, it just makes it easier to work with. So a greatest common factor, what you're looking for is a number that divides evenly into it. So greatest common factor, we call it GCF. It could be a number, but the number has to divide into every number evenly, or it could be a variable. Now this is kind of a weird name. Obviously it's the greatest common factor, but when you're dealing with the variable, you pick the variable that let's say they all have x squared, x to the third, and x. You have to pick the lowest power. So if they all have a's, you have to pick the lowest power of a. The largest number that divides evenly into them, but the power is the smallest one. So let me show you what I mean. Look at your numbers first, 27, 12, 9. Well, you could use 9. 9 goes into 27, but 9 doesn't go into 12, so that's not going to work. 3. 3 is the number that will divide. That's the biggest number that divides evenly into all those numbers. Now if we look at our y's, we have y to the 7th, y squared, and another y squared. Oh, that's a y squared x, but they all have y, so they don't all have x, so we can all take out a y. And the lowest power of this, so we have to pick which one it is, so we'll take out a y squared. We cannot take out an x because only one has the x. Then you just go ahead and do the division. So 27 divided by 3 is 9, and you write all this down. You don't just get rid of it, you keep writing it down. So if we had y to the 7th and we divided it by y squared, when you divide, you subtract the power, 7 minus 2, so we'd have y to the 5th. Then you move on to the next term. Make sure you include that plus or minus sign that's there, that's important. Start over, 12 divided by 3, that's 4. The y squared is gone, right? It's all now outside, but the x is still there. And again, the plus sign, 9 divided by 3, that's a 3. And again, the y squared is on the outside, so we don't have to write it down anymore. This is it. This is the answer. Nothing else you can do to that. We're just simply taking out a factor, and then we're stopping. That's all there is. So for number 2, let's start with the numbers. Looks like 7 and 35. Well, the only number that divides into 7 is 7, but 35 divided by 7 works. So a 7 can come out. They both have a's, but we want to do the lowest power, so that'll be just a to the first. And they both have b's, and the lowest power there is just b. So let's see what we have left. Well, 7ab divided by 7ab, everything cancels. Don't leave that blank. That is a 1. We are dividing, not subtracting. It's a 1, not a 0. The minus sign from the problem. And then we do 35 divided by 7. So now we're doing 35a squared b divided by 7ab. 35 divided by 7 is 5. A squared divided by a, so we subtract the powers. 2 minus 1, so we have just an a left. And of course the b's, they cancel out. If the first number is a negative, you have to factor out a negative sign. Always. Now let's take a look at these numbers. 7, 21, 49, and 7, so a 7 can come out. Letters, well, they don't all have an x. There's no x here, so we can't do anything with the letters. So it looks like we're just dividing by -7. Change your signs. So if we take a -7 out of here, you can see we're left with x to the 4th. And now we're going to have 21x squared divided by -7. Well, this is a positive divided by negative, so it's -3x squared. -49x divided by -7. Well, these two negatives make it positive. Then there'll be a 7, and of course the x is still there. Then lastly, we have 7 divided by -7. Here it is again. When they match, it is a 1. In fact, it's a -1 here because of the signs. And this is the answer. Then we have another type of factoring, which is considered to be some of the easiest factoring we have, and it's called the difference of two squares. difference of two squares means we have a perfect square, like x squared. Any even power is a perfect square. And then we have a perfect square at the end. So your perfect squares, 1 squared, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, and so on. So these are the numbers we're looking for. 81, 100, things like that. So as long as they have a minus sign in between them, we can do this. So in order to get to x squared, we're going to split this up into two groups. In order to get here, two numbers that multiply to give you x squared. Well, that's x times x. This is like reverse FOIL. So we're turning this into something we could FOIL to get to that. Now, this is a perfect square. So this would be 2 times 2. We want to use the numbers that match. And then we want to use a plus and a minus because we want to have a 0 in the middle. So there's no term with x. There's normally our trinomial will be like x squared plus 4x plus some number. Well, the number on these is a 0. So we want it to add up to 0. So a -2 and a +2 will give us 0. That's it. You stop right there. You leave it just like that. Again, so what we're looking for is a perfect square, perfect square, perfect square. We have all that. So in order to get to 81, let's just do one thing at a time. 81 is 9 and 9. X squared would be x and x. You just always split them up like that. 25, the square root of 25 is 5. One's a plus, one's a minus. It doesn't matter which order you put the plus and minus. You just need one to be a plus and one to be a minus. Now for number 3, it's a combination of the two things. Look for a GCF. Always look for a GCF first. GCF is always first. Always, always, always. Unfortunately, not taking that out means you factored it wrong. It doesn't just mean you forgot. So it's truly not right. So they both have a 7 in common, and they both have a y in common. Now you take the smallest power. So now we have left 7y to the third divided by 7y. So that's gone. That's a y. 3 minus 1 is y squared. So we have y squared. 28y rather divided by 7y. The y's are gone. And minus 4. This looks exactly like problem number 1. So you factor it again. Yes, some problems you have to do 2 times. So we're going to have 2 sets of parentheses. Y times y. 4 is 2 and 2. And then, of course, we have plus and minus. In number 4, this is a trick. Yes, 100 is a perfect square. 1 is a perfect square, but there's a plus sign. And so this is not factorable. You could also write prime, because prime means the only factors is 1 in itself. So you could write either one of these. It's up to you. Let's try this again. Look for a number that would divide evenly into both of these numbers, see, because they're not perfect squares. So 2 would work. 8's really the biggest, so you got to take the 8 out. You have to take the biggest number out. So 72x squared divided by 8, that's 9x squared. Be careful with this. 8, it's actually -8 divided by 8. That is a -1. Make sure that 1 gets there. Then you have to factor this again. In order to get to 9, that's 3 times 3. In order to get to x squared, that's x times x. Then you take a space because there's a sign there, and we need 1 times 1 to give you 1, and 1's a plus and 1's a minus. And that's finished. So do the homework and bring the homework back finished to class, please, and also let me know what questions you have when you come to class.